One of the last things that he left with me is he said, I want to be able to see our world where mom and dad say to Johnny and Sally, take your endocannabinoids or your phytocannabinoids and go out and play.
You begin slowly and low. This is for cannabis. Go slowly and go low. This is my practice.
We're not aggressively pushing our services, and like a lot of people don't even know we're here in town until we get raided.
And we're back. Welcome. It's Renee back here in the studio. This episode is part 2 of a conversation that Kirk had with Dr. Patrick Neary at the University of Regina. They've been talking about cannabis and concussions, and we're going to have a listen to the rest of that conversation, and then Trevor and Kirk going over what they've learned about cannabis and concussions.
It's Reefer Madness, the podcast with Trevor and Kirk.
Okay, so here we are. You've done the first study where you have demonstrated that you can give athletes high doses of CBD without any ill effects.
Correct.
So now the next step is to use it prophylactically. The next study is, where do you take the study next? Or are you into it already?
We're into the next study now because so again, we've been very, very fortunate. We've got Health Canada approval to do our second study, and we're calling this the neuroprotection study. And based on the results that we got and the high amount of CBD that athletes could take, we began thinking, well, a lot of literature has actually come out to support what we call the entourage effect. Right?
Yep.
The plant has
full spectrum.
The plant has, over 100 cannabinoids, over 400 or 500 total components, including the terpenes and the flavonoids and of course the cannabinoids. So we began thinking, well, can we create a formulation that has other cannabinoids and terpenes in it as well that could be as beneficial as CBD alone. And if you look through the literature, there's more and more research coming out on the minor cannabinoids and how important they are for neuroprotection and anti-inflammatory. So that's what we've done, is we've designed what we call a broad-based formulation, because it doesn't have any THC in it.
Right.
And it doesn't have any THC because we're working with university athletes.
Sure.
Okay.
So you're doing isolates. And you're combining isolates.
So we combine them all into a gel capsule.
Yeah.
All right. In medium chain oil.
Okay.
Right. So we put that into an oil.
So that's happening now?
It's happening right now. Yeah.
So you've proved that it doesn't harm them. Yeah. Now is this going to be like a 10-year study? Are you following these kids for 10 years? Like what do you like? I mean, how do you find out if it prevents a concussion?
So what we've done with this study, that's an excellent question. So what we've done with this study is the football season, the university football season is about 8 weeks long.
Right.
All right. So for half of the season, they're on the formulation, CBD formulation. The other half of the season, they flop over and they do the placebo. And then there's that. So you might start with the placebo, and then halfway through you'll switch over and take the cannabinoids. I might start with the cannabinoids, switch over and take the placebo. And so before and after each of those interventions, and it's a double-blind crossover design.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what you're getting. All right, you wouldn't know. I don't know as a researcher what you're being prescribed. And so before and after each of those formulations, we do our physiological testing. We monitor the brain for blood flow and oxygen, the heart response, blood pressure, and we're also using something called transcranial magnetic stimulation. And this is with my colleague Cameron Mang, and he's a neurophysiologist. And what it does is it's a coil, it's a magnetic coil that stimulates the neurons in the brain. Okay. And it can give us an indication of whether there's an excitatory response or an inhibitory response. So now we're even looking at that in the brain. Is CBD creating any changes in the excitatory and inhibitory response when you're on it, even before or after a concussion? So anyway, we've started this study. We've already put through 10 of the University Rams football players, and some of the University hockey players, the Cougar hockey players, as well. Of course, their season is a little bit longer. So all we simply did is we went back to our ethics and to Health Canada to say, hey, we want to increase our subject pool. Ice hockey is also contact sport. All right, they have a longer season. We're going to give that to them for a longer period of time. They're still going to do the crossover, and we'll take a look to see what happens.
This is very cool. So now you've got this team of kids. I'm going to call them kids, right? Athletes. You got a team of athletes. You've got them double blinded. You got them taking these capsule pills. You've formulated it. So I'm playing hockey and I go into the boards and I get my bell rung. I go back into the change room and the team athletics support says, you got a concussion, man. So now do you treat that guy differently now? Do you pull him aside and say, this guy's been diagnosed with a potential concussion, now we're going to test him?
So what we do is we follow up with testing.
Okay.
We don't change anything. And so if, for example, So
you don't change anything at all, just the guy got his bell rung.
We just bring him back more often.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So there's been a box checked, right?
Yeah.
Because the whole point of this whole point is you got to figure out, you got to track the concussions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So what we do is we don't change anything is that if he happens to be on the placebo, we just say continue to take your medication. If he happens to be on the CBD, we say just continue taking your medication. But we don't know that.
Right. Just carry on. But now we've tagged you saying you were a guy with a concussion.
Yeah. And then so what we do then is I say, Kirk, you need to come back on day 1 or day 2.
Okay.
Right? As soon as we can get you back into the lab, do exactly the identical testing, blood as well. We're taking blood samples as well. And then we say, okay, we want you to come back in 3 days because we want to look at what goes on over that time period. So we might get you back on day 1. We might get you back on day 4. Then we're going to have you come back on day 7.
Okay.
And we're going to monitor symptoms, all right, using what we call our SCAT test.
Sure.
All right. Sport concussion assessment tool. What kind of symptoms you have, and then we just continue to follow you. And let's say even after 7 days, you're still not back and you're not feeling well. Well, that's okay. We're still going to continue to monitor you on day 10, day 14. All right, until you are actually back.
That's very cool.
So that's our second study. And so, as I said, we've got 10 guys that have come through already. And then so it's going to go over 2 seasons. So we've already done the 1 season, the 2004, 2005, right? So now we're going to move into the 2006, 2007 season. So in July and August, they'll be coming back to us. We're also going to approach our junior football here, the Thunder football.
Okay.
It's very similar to the Hilltops, which is up in Saskatoon. There's a variety of teams out of Winnipeg as well.
This
junior
is
football.
Varsity level football?
It's varsity level,
Okay.
but there are students that are really either not going to university, and they just want to continue to play
ball.
Yeah.
So right now, the NFL is sponsoring a group of Canadians to study Canadian football players. And the rules of the game don't change, eh?
No. And so that's what they want to know. They want to know, in contact sport, and more specifically football, all right? But again, as I said, we're extending it into ice hockey because it's still a contact sport.
Sure, makes sense.
Right?
Makes sense. So So the NFL is not necessarily involved with their players. This is they're funding you to say, what can you figure out that we can apply?
Exactly.
So eventually somebody's going to say, okay, pick a team, and let's do it with the NFL guys. So how many, from what you're telling me already, so in the next 10 years, do you think all contact sport players will be taking vitamin CBD?
I believe so.
Yeah.
If not already, a lot of them are involved with it. Even when you look at the CFL, all right, our rules and regulations are certainly much different than they are in the States. And although the NFL has loosened their restrictions and requirements, all right, quite a bit actually. At one time, you had almost minimum amount all right, of the THC in your system. And then, of course, now, you know, the relaxation of their regulations are much better.
Right on.
Right? So that's the second study, second study of this whole project. And again, we're going to run it again this coming summer, and then into the fall and into the winter as well.
Okay.
With our hockey. We're going to use as many football teams as we can. We may even make a trip up to Saskatoon to see if we can get the University of Saskatchewan, their team, the Huskies, involved. We have colleagues also part of this, you know, they're cerebral vascular physiologists and probably some of the best in the world, in my opinion, at the University of British Columbia in Kelowna.
Okay.
And a good friend and a colleague, Phil Ainsley, has been looking at cerebral vascular function forever. And him and I just looked at each other and we stumbled upon, you know, there's been more than 40 years of this research out there, which I knew nothing about until I met Lester.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's the thing that always bothers me about cannabis politics, is that the Western medicine says there's not enough studies, and I'm thinking, but there are studies, and all the studies suggest that we should be looking at this.
Yeah.
We just interviewed Dr. Robinson out of Israel, and he did a longitudinal study with 50 diabetics for 5 years, followed them, and the conclusion was, he thinks it might just be unethical not to suggest that diabetics should not be smoking their flower. Mm-hmm. Because he found glycemic indexes fell, neuropathic pain fell. It's like, why aren't we giving these guys cannabis? Mm-hmm. It's
and you know, Kirk, that's the next study as well. So study 3, which as I mentioned, I'm putting together a clinical trial application right now to submit to Health Canada. And we're very positive that it'll go through, just based on the fact that there's more and more research coming out. And if you look at the clinicaltrial.gov website, right in the United States, they're showing that they're starting to use more minor cannabinoids, including THC. So our next study is going to use, again, a formulation, but it's also going to include a very small amount of THC, all right? Okay. It'll be less than the 0.3%, all right, that most people will allow researchers really to give their participants. So in that study, we're going to look at neuropathic pain. We're going to look at orthopedic pain. We're going to look at ex-professional and junior hockey football players, all right, that unfortunately may be on prescription medications, right? Some of them may be taking opioids as well. With the whole idea is, can we help in the pain management area? And so the third study is going to be just called that, pain management. And they're going to, again, it's going to be a what we call a Latin square design. And right now we have 4 different products that we want to put into that. And every individual will actually get one of those products. So there will be a THC only.
Okay.
Right? There will be a CBD only.
Okay.
There will be this full spectrum only. And then there will be placebo. So if you and I were in the study, we would have to go through all of those.
4 of them.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you'd be on it for a month, and then there's a 2-week washout, and then you're on the next one. All right, and it's randomized as well. So we randomize that.
Cannabinoid system to reboot, give that 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, during that 2 weeks, and then again, all of the same physiological and blood tests and the transcranial Doppler stuff and magnetic stimulation, all of the same tests that we're doing.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Kirk, you know, they ask you, who's your favorite podcast guest? And, you know, it's like my children, they're all my favorite. They're all fantastic. But, you know, secretly, Neary might be my favorite. He's just that combination of super positive and super pleasant and super knowledgeable. He's a great guy to talk to.
Yeah, and it was very casual. I was in Van Hoot. I was traveling down the Trans-Canada Highway, and we started texting. I parked. I pulled over.
You were safe, good.
Yeah, I was safe, and he directed me to to the campus and went to the Tim Hortons. He got himself a cup of coffee. We stepped outside, sat down, and talked. One of the things that really popped for me was how he got into cannabinoid therapy through Lester Grinspoon.
Yes.
And the quote I love that I pulled out was, "I want to be able to see our world where mom and dad say to Johnny and Sally, take your cannabinoids or your phenabinoids and go out and play." Sort of like Dr. Turner saying 7 years ago, go take your vitamin CBD.
Yeah, no, I like that this one episode touched on so many of our other ones. So like you said, we talked to Lester's son, Peter Grinspoon, who's also now a cannabinoid physician at E66. We actually talked to Dr. Neary before, E85.
Well, yeah, episode 85.
Yeah,
we
so
forgot to mention
that was
that.
before any of these studies, when they were just kind of an idea. The NFL had just said, "Yeah, we'll give this guy in Regina some money," and so it's cool that it's still going. I kind of forgot until I was flipping back through it. Janester Wilson King. So we've talked about a lot of, we'll call it women's health, perimenopausal, endometriosis stuff with her over a few episodes, but back into E145, she was working with Peter Grinspoon, so again, another Grinspoon thing, and then just football in general. Back in episode 95, Taurus Baptiste was an actual football player who was, this close to being in the NFL, and stuff happened and it didn't work out, but, football players and cannabis, it comes up, and like you were saying during the episode, Lester Grinspoon, I don't know if I knew this story before, Lester Grinspoon had written an open letter to the NFL saying, you got to let these guys smoke cannabis because it protects their brains. So just so many things all come together.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was sitting there and listening to this conversation and thinking back of how much we've known about cannabis for so long, and and how people are, how the current today's scientists, are getting into it. I mean, Lester was the first, I guess, what we would call first generation cannabis advocate in prohibition, and his influence is affecting today, and it just kills me because the other day I had a conversation with a young man who was, and we're going to have him on here eventually, but I met him in Winnipeg as a bud tender, 21 years old, Trevor, and I'm talking to him, doing one of my cold calls, and what I found fascinating is that during the interview or during the comments, it dawned on me, this kid's 21, he's never known illegal cannabis, right? So you look back at the Lesters of the world, or or the 60s when David Crosby and the Beatles and Bob Dylan, those guys all using cannabis, and it was such devil's weed back then. But even the scientists back then knew there was benefits, of course, because, the emperor wears no clothes. Jack Hayter's novel book came out. And it's just, here we are, we're in this sort of, I guess, first generation of legalization, and finally we're getting some studies done, but yet from what we've learned from our past interview with Dr. Kelly, we just had the conversation about research and how difficult it is to have research in Canada, right?
It is, but I just want to, and not that, but I want to do a yes and on that, but yes and Neary and his team are doing some really good stuff, really good and interesting, and not namby-pamby stuff on these athletes' brains. They're measuring the blood flow in the brain. They're measuring the oxygen in the brain. Like you said, his team, and I'm going to miss some of them, but they have heart specialists. They have like neurologists, brain specialists. They have people looking at the immune system. They have, of course, you have to have a good
multidisciplinary team.
You got to have a good pharmacist in there doing the pharmacokinetics. So those are the people who check your blood later to see what the CBD broke down into at what time. Like this is not a man. I took some cannabis and my brain feels better. No, this is the hard science that they're doing a really cool job on. It's going to be very interesting to see, broken down all the different stuff they found. I'm not surprised when he didn't say we have a paper coming out on study 1. They have papers, because there's going to be papers who are coming out on this stuff, because they're getting just a ton of data.
Yeah, I agreed. It's interesting though about the liver studies. I mean, we've been reading about CBD and how it affects the liver, but I guess I was reminded. I was talking to Ted Smith about my interview with Neary and about the liver, because also the Victoria Bio Cannabis Club, they also do high doses of
but
cannabinoids.
That wasn't really a liver damage. Like the Ted Smith from, it'll be a couple episodes by the time people hear this. That was a drug interaction thing. So
correct.
So Ted patients, not surprisingly, they've got a lot of stuff going on with them, so they're on a lot of medication. And CBD, especially, and some of the other cannabinoids, you go back to Dr. Lindsay Anderson, I don't remember a number, but people have looked into this. A lot of the cannabinoids, and sometimes especially CBD, affect some liver enzymes that break down other medications. So if you take CBD and other medications at the same time, basically you have to be careful, aka call your pharmacist. But that's making the liver work differently isn't quite the same as liver damage. I know I'm being pedantic.
No. But that was, you stole my punchline. That's exactly what I was going to say, is that in this case, we're dealing with young athletes. And it's a reminder, we're not quite into the NFL yet. This is a study supported by the NFL for future use in the NFL. But this is now university varsity athletes, hockey players, contact sports, right? So that's what I'm thinking. They must have healthy livers. These are healthy young peoples, and so this is what we're good. And the other quote that I liked about it is one of the core findings was that they were able to show that CBD does not have negative effects on the cardiovascular system, nor does it have negative effects on
chances of stroke, cerebral vascular stuff,
and function. at high doses. So we're getting away from the stigma. We're getting away from the the stuff that we've been told how these things are going to, the devil's lettuce is going to hurt you.
And just because it's fun to throw out the big numbers, they had some of, like you guys were saying, big boys. So 140 kilograms, can't quite do that in my head, but that'll be north of 300 pound linebackers, I'm presuming, on some huge doses of CBD, and they were fine. Might have bothered their tummies a little bit, but they were fine.
I think him and Dr. Neary and his team are going to do great things with breaking the stigma of cannabis, and how more athletes. We've done several episodes on athletes now, and how cannabis has helped athletes, and it's time that professional leagues, and that it's not a performance enhancing drug, right? It may be actually more of a healing drug than a performance enhancing drug. It's stigma. There's a lot of stigma.
No, absolutely. And I don't have it here, but if you go back and we had talked to someone about the Olympic athletes back in the catalog. If I can find it, I'll try and put it in the notes. But yes, this athletes and cannabis has come up before. This was a really good one. Without me I've got 2 pages worth of notes, but honestly, I think Dr. Neary sort of covered most of them better than I'm going to. Anything else you want to talk about with Neary?
No, just that we're going to have to keep track of him, because I think he's having a lot of fun, and again, he's a friend of the show. This is our second interview with him, and he's doing great things. He and his team are doing great things.
Canadian cannabis researchers, go team.
This I was looking back on our webpage when we did the episode with Dr. Neary before the Cannabis is for Headbangers. We didn't put a lot of his papers. So on this page, I'll have his papers linked, because if you Google him on Scholar, he's got lots of papers up.
Another good one. I really like the episodes with Neary. Maybe we'll still get 1 or 2 more as the papers keep coming out.
Check out the complete library of Reefer Medness episodes at reefermed.ca. And make sure to follow us on all the socials for bonus info on what Trevor and Kirk are up to.
You're almost hoping for some guys to get a concussion. I know. yeah. You go a whole different perspective now when you go to a hockey game, eh? Okay, I don't care about the score.